How have you been since we last met?
I'm well. I have a bit of news about the mediation, the restorative and repair mediation of the ongoing employment relationship that
Oh,
was going to happen.
I'm really interested to hear that. Tell me what
Yeah.
happened.
Well, it didn't end up going ahead, the fictitious
Oh,
mediation with the fictitious people at Craggy Point Farm.
oh,
There was an incident at Craggy Point Farm, and as you recall, Tracy, the farm hand, and Craig, the farm manager, they'd had some difficulties, and they were quite amenable to resolving them at a facilitative mediation to repair the ongoing employment relationship. But before we could get to the mediation, Tracy thought that she saw Craig hitting a cow.
oh,
And yeah, exactly. And reported Craig to MPI, Ministry for Primary Industries, and the SPCA, who duly attended. And there was nothing, that out of order that the agencies noticed. But Craig became very upset about the reports that Tracy had made and called her to the farmhouse and regrettably dismissed her on the spot. So Tracy's accommodation was linked to her employment, so she actually spent a few days sleeping in her car and subsequently raised a personal grievance against Craggy Point Farm and the owner, Mr. McRae, who is Craig's father. Um, she did find another job, which was quite remarkable because Craig had gone around the local pub and the farming community and had been bad mouthing her as a woke hippie. But she found another job at the neighbouring property at the organic vineyard. Um, Nevertheless, she did, as I said, she raised a personal grievance at the Employment Relations Authority, and the parties were referred to mediation. Because I had done some work with them, they did decide to come back to me for a private mediation, and we've had the mediation. So
oh,
it was a different process to what was going to happen with those
what you were
parties.
expecting. Yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what did you do to prepare both yourself and the parties for this process?
Well, we had to completely switch gears or change gears because there was litigation on foot, and the employment relationship was no longer. So there was quite a bit of work in pre-mediation meetings. So I spent, about an hour with each party, which at that point included Mr. McRae as the owner of the farm, along with Craig and Tracy. Both parties had representatives, but they weren't particularly inclined towards the employment jurisdiction. So in this case, they were able to take a back seat, and which actually proved to be in this mediation, it was good to be able to ultimately to be able to get the parties to talk to each other directly, but in private session or in pre-mediation, there was a lot of reassurance that needed to be provided. Tracy was really anxious about coming to mediation and feeling a bit intimidated by Craig's behaviour when he dismissed her. And likewise, Craig had some very high emotions. He was very cross with Tracy for having reported him to the agencies. Mr. McRae was a bit more pragmatic. He just wanted the farm to get back to, operations without having to be involved in litigation. Um, but one thing I did to reassure the parties was to kind of map out the process, which was to say, well, um, you'll both be given an opportunity, an uninterrupted opportunity to talk, and if you feel distressed or if you have high emotions, please ask for a break, and we will take a future focus view. We'll be trying to look for some possible options to resolve this rather than just rehashing what had happened in the past.
Cool. And did you think that they needed any extra supports for this process?
Yes, I did in terms of Tracy, because I felt that, with Mr. McRae being there and the representative for the Craggy Point Farm, even though she had a representative, I felt like she needed some moral support. So she was able to ask her sister to come, and her sister just decided to take a non-speaking role and just to be a support person and hold her hand and, take her out for a cup of tea if she needed it. And, so that was,
Right. So you prepared them well for it as well.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I did
Cool.
say, look, this is not your everyday occurrence, and it might get you might get tired, you might get emotional, but that's part of the process, and you can take a break if you need to.
Sure. Well, Lisa, you're a very experienced mediator. What skills did you bring to this process to make it work well for the parties?
I think the main things for these parties were to have a mediator who was very calm, given that emotions were so intense between them, even up to the mediation day and during the mediation day. So to take a calm approach, to not to elevate the temperature in the room, and to be very observant if anybody looked like they were going over the edge in terms of their emotions, and actually proactively suggesting a break. There were instances throughout the morning where Tracy was tearful and crying, and also respectively Craig got angry at various points in the tone of his voice. He raised his voice a few times and said a few swear words. So, spending equal time with them and calling a break and saying, look, I'm noticing that you have some elevated emotions, so let's take a break. Going in to see them, spending an equal amount of time with both of them, and kind of normalizing those heightened emotions, but maintaining some confidence to say, hey, you're doing really well, this is really brave of you both to be here. Let's keep going. Giving them confidence in themselves.
And I guess treating them with empathy as well, for it is can be a difficult time for people, can't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Craig's business had been threatened, or the operation of the farm had been severely threatened and subjected to some scrutiny. And Tracy had lost her job. She'd been sleeping in her car for a few days and was feeling very tender about the community talking about her. So, yeah, it's pretty raw.
Yeah. And so did they come back together after that session, and how did the next joint conversation go?
It went well. Yeah, I think with a bit of encouragement not to talk about the other one, not to talk in accusatory terms, but to talk about how they felt, telling their story from their point of view. Tracy was able to understand that Craig had not been hitting the cow, and that the cow had been having some sort of a seizure, and he'd been administering to the cow. He'd been trying to look after the cow. And Craig to understand from Tracy's point of view what she'd seen, and then the impact of the dismissal on her. I think that they had a better understanding of what really was just a miscommunication. If they'd both, if Tracy had have approached Craig, or Craig had have approached Tracy and just talked about the reporting or the incident itself, this might never have happened. So it was just like a big old miscommunication that had turned into a huge problem for them both.
Yeah. And so they reached a point where they had talked through the issues sufficiently to start thinking about how things might get resolved. How did that pan out?
So I think by that stage, from memory, it was fictitious lunchtime, and hungry people and tired people they're not able to sort of think about options for the future. So there was a lunch break, and then there was another private session where I talked to them separately, and asked them how they thought that the session was going for them. And they both reflected to me in private session that they now had a greater understanding of the other one's point of view. I started the process of a bit of risk analysis. What do you think might happen if this doesn't resolve today? And Tracy reflected back to me that her representative had informed her that the authority process is a very long one, and that the investigation meeting is can be quite tough on employees, that there's a bit of publicity around when the determination comes out. That, and also the representative had said that there's no guarantees that, that the determination would be in her favour. And likewise for Craig and Mr. McRae. Mr. McRae, I have a feeling he might have been through something like this earlier on before Craig took over, and he was well versed in the kind of the perils of litigation and the disruption to the operation of the farm if Craig had to go away and give evidence and things like that. So I think they knew that. Well, I think they were both actually really, after they had understood each other's point of view, they really were well motivated to try and resolve.
Okay, and so did they?
Well, they came up with some pretty crazy options in the first instance.
Yeah.
Craig was minded to counterclaim against Tracy to sort of offset anything compensation that he might have to pay her. But Mr. McRae looked horrified at that. So, with a bit of encouragement about, what do you think the other party might need in order to be able to resolve this matter, they did ultimately come up with some options, and which involved a bit of compensation to Tracy and some mutual non-disparagement terms, and discussion about how they would cope if they saw each other in the community, and sort of some quite practical things as well, because they were going to see each other again.
Yeah, that's really important, isn't it? We sometimes overlook that, how important those relationships are to be able to maintain them, especially when you live in the same community, know the same people, and going to the same pub, I guess, all the time. So yeah, and it's another reason why the confidentiality of mediation is so helpful, isn't it? That they don't need to tell anyone else what happened.
No, that's right. And sort of always equipping parties with little sound bites that they can use, because they will be approached by, various people, Mr. Jones at the greengrocer's shop, or, someone will say, well, I heard you had a problem. What happened with that? And if they can just say something like, oh, look, don't worry, it's all resolved, or, if someone presses them, they can just say, look, I'm not able to talk about it, but the issue is resolved. And just to be very concise about it.
Well, that sounds like it was a great outcome for everybody. Well done, Lisa.
Thank you, Judy. Oh, well, I'll look forward to our next conversation, which may well be subject to confirmation, impartiality, notions of impartiality.
It sounds really interesting. I'll look forward to that too.
Me too. Thanks, Judy. Thanks for the debrief.
That's a pleasure.
See
you, Lisa. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.